this is on wheels, and you can't push on it, otherwise it'll go forward. If any of you have ever seen me speak, I tend to use my hands, so I'm going to try to be real careful. Thank you so much for giving me the privilege and the opportunity to meet with you this evening. I very much want to thank Sherry Scarborough, who I think all of us would agree is really the embodiment of what a community activist is, and with the highest level of integrity and with extraordinary commitment to community. Sherry serves our community in Palm Beach County so effectively, and I think I share with all other elected officials in our area an extraordinary amount of admiration to the work that she does. We are all the beneficiary of her efforts. A gentleman told me to, as I was walking up and walking around, to loosen my tie, that I was probably going to get a bunch of tough questions this evening. I've been getting them all weekend, so I'm anxious to hear your thoughts and your concerns and your questions. And before I do that, if you would give me an opportunity to talk a little bit about what the United States Congress is trying to do in Washington, talk a little bit about domestic policy, a little bit about foreign policy, and maybe I should start, because a number of people asked me to as I was walking around, to explain, at least from my perspective, what the Democratic National Committee did this last weekend. I understand this is not a meeting of the Democratic Party, but of course it affects the votes of so many here in Florida. And let me just share with you my perspective. My perspective is Floridians, Democrats, and all of us had a huge victory this weekend before the Democratic National Committee. And why do I say that? I say that because as Floridians, we walked into that Democratic National Committee meeting on Saturday morning with no delegates to the National Democratic Convention, and not a single one of our votes counted with respect to the primary in January. And what we walked out with, and please understand, the very same committee that we presented to this Saturday to ask for the reinstatement of Florida's delegates was the exact same committee that stripped us of our full representation at the Democratic Convention. That was not a friendly body of people. So we walked in with 0 delegates and 0 votes counted. And we walked out with all of the votes counted, every one of them, and the delegates that go to the National Convention being fully apportioned based on the primary vote in January. Now some people say to me, okay, that's great, Wexler, but, of course, we only get half the amount of delegates, and that's true. And I can tell you the first thing that I am going to request of Senator Barack Obama, should he become the Democratic nominee, and should he gain control of the Democratic Party, which he would as the Democratic nominee, the first thing I'm going to ask him to do is to reinstate as the Democratic nominee the full delegation of the Florida Democrat delegates to the convention based on the January primary. Too late. Agreed. I disagree fundamentally with what the Democratic National Committee did last August. I wish more than anything they didn't penalize Florida at all. I, along with my other Democratic colleagues, and the good news was, whether people supported Clinton, whether people supported Obama, whether people were undecided, as a group of Floridians, we continually demanded of Howard Dean, unfortunately to no avail, that the penalty that was imposed by the Democratic Party on Floridians was unfair. In fact, many people believe it actually violated the rules of the Democratic Party. As many of you, I think, know, the Republicans in Florida were in the same position. But the Republican National Committee penalized Republicans from the beginning by only half, and they permitted the candidates to campaign in Florida and otherwise engage in an ordinary primary. I wish, candidly, that the Democratic Party had done that very same thing. We wouldn't be having a discussion today, probably, if they had. But that wasn't what they did, and we were faced with this predicament. And I would respectfully suggest to people who are looking for perfection in politics, perfection in government, you're not going to find it. You're just not going to find it. And everything good in politics and everything good in government comes with compromise. And you take one victory and you pocket it, and then you think about the next opportunity to gain even more. And that's why I respectfully suggest that I believe, under the circumstances, given the position that we were in, which was a very difficult position, I believe Floridians came out a winner on Saturday. It gives the Democratic Party an opportunity to unify. And let me, if I could, I'm going to stop with this. Please think about this for one moment. In the midst of a heated presidential campaign, and I hope all Democrats can agree on one thing. We had two extraordinary candidates for president. A luxury of riches in the context of both Senator Clinton and Senator Obama. But what happened on Saturday is that the most strident Clinton supporters and the most strident Obama supporters all voted unanimously for the same motion to support the so-called Osmond petition. That is an act of unity that I think we all should respect, and it is the beginning of coming together to focus. Again, I understand this is not a Democratic partisan event, but to focus on a general election where there will be, in fact, a very distinct set of differences between what Senator Obama, should he be the nominee, and Senator McCain wish to bring to the nation. And let me move on if I could. Now, I was handed this article by Ms. Welch, by Gladys Welch, who asked me if I could explain my reaction to it. And it's the article that was in today's Sun Sentinel, I think, that says, "Choosing Obama will hurt Jewish people." I don't know how many people saw it. And I will address it. So let me talk about a couple of other things first, if you would allow me. We as a nation are facing so many critical